With Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 9 done in the books, I wanted to take the next couple of videos to highlight the importance of Momoshiki's character moving forward, including a rather bold hot take that I'm saving for tomorrow's video that I don't want placed in this one because I want the conversation to stay on this topic, appreciating Momoshiki, because right now Momoshiki is being positioned for a bigger role in the story, and the possibilities with this character that have me excited in a way that I haven't been in a long time when it comes to this character, because the moment in this chapter where Boruto freaked out at his karma still spreading and his resonance with Kawaki, it was a moment that opened up a few narrative paths for the story to take us, but all those paths have the same thing waiting at the end of them, which is our favorite celestial alien parasite Momoshiki. And it's important to look at all of that as we move deeper into the story of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. One of the things that makes a good hero is when they have a compelling journey that has all the elements of a strong internal conflict and external conflicts, several of them, that plays off of those internal conflicts. For example, some of Naruto's internal conflicts were his desire to be the Hokage and his battle with the Nine Tails chakra influence, and the external conflicts they played on top of those things clashing, and it was making explosions in the narrative. Naruto wanted to be Hokage, but he couldn't be Hokage until he brought his friend Sasuke back from the darkness by completing the promise of a lifetime he made to Sakura. Naruto struggled with the Nine Tails power, and at times he was afraid of that power, but he was constantly placed in situations where he had no choice but to use that power, lose himself in the despair of that fear, and eventually to accomplish his goal of being Hokage, the physical obstacle that came with bringing back Sasuke. He needed to face that big demon of the Nine Tails and slay that proverbial dragon and control its power in order to do that. All those things, they played off each other in a very poetic way. With Boruto, his goal of being the shadow that protects the village from within the shadows, his goal to rescue his parents, his goal to save Kawaki from his own madness brought about by Kawaki's obsession and his belief that he's doing the right thing, and all the moral lines he's crossing to reach his goals, one of which includes killing Boruto. In order for Boruto to accomplish those things, he's going to have to stare down his own dragon and conquer it, and potentially cast out that dragon, and that dragon is none other than Momoshiki. Momoshiki is the source of both of one of Boruto's strongest internal conflicts as well as his external conflicts, and one could argue that he is directly the cause of all of Boruto's external conflicts. And as a writer, you love to have characters who can serve as what I like to call them chaos agents. They're characters who can shake up the story, and they can push the main character into difficult situations either directly or indirectly in order to force a stimulated growth out of said characters. Sometimes it can be in your face and direct in the way that, say, Pain and Obito did with Naruto, and sometimes it can be indirectly like you see with To Your Eternity with Fushi and Prince Bond. Using a personal example, Naruto Explained would have never existed if I didn't lose KRYPTONIAN Saiyan for the 9 months I lost the channel. I made this channel following Roberto Blake's advice, where he said you should just focus on Boruto and you're gonna grow a lot faster than you did on your first channel. Lo and behold, he was right. It took feeling that moment of temporary pain in order to get a renewed purpose. What we're seeing right now with Boruto being warned by Kashi and Koji to stay away from Kawaki because of the resonance with his karma. Most importantly, Koji's concern that Boruto will, quote, lose control, end quote, is something I found to be very fascinating, because it's the story reminding us that our favorite boogeyman for Boruto, he isn't gone, even though he's been super quiet in the entirety of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. This was a great way to plant the very subtle seeds in the minds of readers without even saying Momoshiki's name. Momoshiki is still a problem for Boruto. We know that their minds, they've been merged to a degree, but we also know that Momoshiki can still take over Boruto's body when the time permits, like he did when he saved Kawaki from getting his head cut off by Sasuke. But also, we saw either Boruto was able to regain control, or Momoshiki willingly gave up control because he wanted to gaslight Boruto into despair because he knew the Omnipotence was about to be casted. However, the timing of this moment with Momoshiki's presence being felt in chapter 9 specifically, this was not by mistake, and it's something we talked about last month. When you go back to Boruto Naruto Next Generation's manga, it was in chapter 9 where Momoshiki was defeated by Boruto, and Momoshiki had begun to make the preparation preparations to make the Coma seal in the very next Boruto chapter. Chapter 9, it served as the calm before the storm that would be hit in the next chapter when Momoshiki gave Boruto the Coma, and he told him those blue eyes would take everything away, which we now know were Ada's blue eyes, and it would set Boruto down the course of a payoff that we wouldn't see come to fruition for almost 70 chapters later. I think chapter 9 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, it served as another gut check moment for Boruto's character. It served as a potential trigger point, a fixed point in the timeline where we look back and we say this changed everything, but I'm not sure that we see our little ghoulish Momoshiki pop up to torment Boruto in the next chapter. I think that moment is going to be saved for something bigger later on down the line. Or if we do see Momoshiki, I think it's only going to be brief. The resurgence that we're seeing with Momoshiki, it is exactly what you want with the story, because it has a layer of the chaos and the unpredictability to the story that can take an already explosive situation and it can make it nuclear. And when that happens, you tend to get some pretty amazing moments narrative, particularly if the plot twists that you see, they can be traced back to past events that can be used as connective tissue to make for an even bigger payoff. Look at everything facing Boruto right now, and you can see how much conflict we have for the character. And right now, Boruto is up to his neck in it. He's one of the few people who knew that his parents, they were sealed away by Kawaki, but 99% of the world believes that he murdered his parents, and they don't acknowledge him as being their child because their memories, they've been altered by Omnipotence. His adopted brother wants to kill him, and Boruto can understand his reasoning behind those actions, but Boruto still wants to resolve their dispute without brother killing brother. The alien whose soul shares Boruto's body is the reason why Code wants to feed him to the Ten Tails, and those same Ten Tails, they have 4 of them who have been awakened and they're forming their own ego, and they're hunting down primarily Boruto, but at the same time, at some point, they're going after his adopted brother Kawaki, who wants to kill Boruto and has shown no inclination in wanting to work with him, despite them both sharing a common enemy. His sister is being hunted down by one of those Shinju, and he's got to go save her, but before he could do that, his adopted brother, who could care less about his sister, instead of putting aside their differences, was going out of his way to make sure that he could frame Boruto for murders of the Konoha Jonin at the gates, so as to erase all the goodwill that Boruto built up by saving the village from Code, which in turn plays on the emotions of the other Konoha shinobi, and it makes them double down on wanting to kill Boruto, who will be conflicted and won't use his full power to harm people who used to be his comrades, now having to put distance between himself and Kawaki because the karma is still spreading, and Kashin Koji's words that Boruto will lose control. It implies that something happened in the past during the 3-year time skip, 2 of which were likely spent with Kashin Koji. For Koji to even come to that realization, because we've seen Boruto's karma resonate before with Kawaki, but this Momoshiki factor and the unknown territory they find themselves in and Koji's warning, it makes it seem like there's something more dangerous coming, and I absolutely love it. So here's the thing, this is how you continue to build a villain without having them have to go super over the top. And I know there are some of you guys who are writers who watch these videos because of some of the stuff I've gotten in emails, as well as a couple of my patrons who I know are writers, so I want to make sure to kind of point this out. Sure, I would absolutely love for Momoshiki to hijack Boruto's body and become a total edgelord and catch a few bodies, pile them up in front of him, and then give Boruto back control of his body just so I can see the guy suffer more. That's what I personally want. But there's more than one way to build an effective villain. Sometimes it's through absence that you can make a villain and their presence feel larger to the story. And unfortunately, that's something that a lot of battle shonen tend to overlook. Modern battle shonen, they've kind of corrected some of the past that older shonen have shown. However, that's still a problem that you see to a degree. Sometimes it is through absence that you can make your villain and their presence feel larger to the story and resonate deeper with your readers. Sometimes the best way to engage those readers is to let their mind wander and let their thoughts marinate about the villain and what they're planning before you stick it in the oven and cook the story to a point that you're getting ready to serve it to them. Just as the meat becomes more seasoned and juicy when you do that with meals that you're preparing, your readers, they're becoming more invested in said villain indirectly, and more sympathetic to the main character or the hero who is being tormented. Your hero is only as strong as your villain. By keeping Momoshiki around and having him be used as a source of an antagonist conflict that never truly goes away, even if he isn't the direct conflict that Boruto's facing right now, it's something that we haven't seen be used in the Naruto franchise for a while. People like Shoujoji and Boruto's manga, they came and they went. The Car Inners were mostly defeated within 2 to 3 chapters of being introduced. That was one of the issues I had at times at Boruto reading the manga monthly as the chapters came out. Even Jigen and Ishiki felt like they came and they went very quickly. However, this has changed with Momoshiki, and indirectly it's also changed with Ishiki, but we'll touch on that later. Part of what made villains like Orochimaru, who was both a key villain and a chaos agent, even after he shifted to being a secondary threat because the Akatsuki took over as a main focus, Kishimoto still kept him around for a third of Naruto's manga, and it opened up more possibilities for long-term storytelling because of all the things that got put into play. Even after he got killed, it still had traces going back to Orochimaru, having Kabuto lurking in the background, feeling like he might be a dangerous threat, but also not really a threat worthy of focusing on because you had the Akatsuki problem to deal with, you had the Sasuke problem to deal with. It set the stage for him to return as one of the driving factors in the final third of Naruto's manga, which is crazy to think that a guy introduced as Orochimaru's sidekick would be one of the final villains for the last third of the manga. Something I said, I see signs of code being used in that way, unless this is all a red herring for code meant to divert our attention away from something else like, say, Amato. Momoshiki has been around in the narrative since the literal first volume of the manga. If I'm not mistaken, he debuts in chapter 2 of the manga, and he is still there. He is still pushing the story along, even when he's not being shown. All of this subtle buildup, it is setting up for something big with Momoshiki, and I think the story is being very smart with this gradual reintroduction of Momoshiki, this resurgence of Momoshiki, because you have to make the moment where you bring him back into the story a moment that gets a maximum pop. The last time we saw him, the chaos of omnipotence, it had occurred, and he was trying to gaslight Boruto into giving up his body, something that you better believe Momoshiki has never stopped aiming for, because if he can't resurrect using Boruto's body, he's damn sure gonna settle for being able to hijack it, and you have to make that next moment feel earned when Momoshiki pops up, and I think that that's what we're potentially getting. Just when all the drama that we're seeing in Konoha with the Shinju, Kawaki, and Himawari, just as all that stuff begins to hit its peak, bringing Momoshiki to blow everything up, not just by adding gasoline to the fire, but dropping a whole 300-gallon propane tank on top of it, dropping a nuclear warhead on top of it, is gonna set the stage for something explosive that makes Momoshiki's return be just as memorable as the other times that we've seen it. People will remember Boruto episodes 207 and 208 because those episodes where Momoshiki took over and he destroyed Boro, and he dropped another line about the day that Boruto would lose everything was close at hand, but still a far ways away. They remember episode 218, not just because of Kurama dying, but also Momoshiki destroys the Rinnegan. They remember Boruto episodes 292 and 293, where Momoshiki almost killed Naruto because he refused to fight his son, and Momoshiki brought Boruto back to life while warning him the day of reckoning where he loses it all, it was close at hand. Most of those moments for Boruto's journey, they were iconic moments specifically for Boruto's journey. They might not be iconic when you compare them to other shonen going on, which is a common thing that people will do. They'll make the mistake of comparing what goes on in this story to something going on in another story. We don't give a damn about what's going on in other stories. We're only focused on this story. However, that's not what most intrigues me about Momoshiki, and it's not what I hope you guys leave this video feeling most intrigued about Momoshiki. Are all those moments where he causes chaos cool? Absolutely, I pop just like a lot of you guys. However, that's not what gets me the most. I hope you look back at this scene and you see what I saw, which is that indirect conflict being shown that doesn't even have to say Momoshiki's name. It just drops a breadcrumb that we all know what is referring to, which is what it did. You'll lose control. Who benefits when Boruto loses control? Momoshiki benefits. What happens when someone loses control? Someone else assumes control. Maybe that's that's Momoshiki, maybe that's Kawaki who takes advantage of the situation. The fact is, Momoshiki, without even having to be shown, is still a needle mover. If you're going the route that we saw in Boruto episode 220, that is the smart play here. Even though Momoshiki was not shown, he was the underlying source of conflict for so many characters, from Boruto being afraid to go to sleep until he was in his father's arms, Sasuke getting very emotional as he told Naruto that as Boruto's master, he owed it to him to kill him, to set aside his own love for Boruto that prevented him from killing Boruto when Momoshiki took over, saying he won't make that mistake ever again. And Naruto was having a panic attack as he looked at his hand as he held Boruto, realizing that everyone in the world wanted him to use that same hand he was looking at to shove a Rasengan into the back of his son and kill him. But Naruto wanted nothing more than to take that hand and comfort his son. Those are basic elements of storytelling that any good writer that is worth their salt knows how to convey. Not everything needs the melodrama of hand-to-hand combat. Sometimes those character-driven moments are the moments that give you the most payoff. We never need to see Momoshiki in episode 220, but he impacted so much of the story there, and I think Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, it has a chance to capture that same feeling here. Again, I think you do eventually see Momoshiki, and you might even see him next chapter, but I think this resurgence of Momoshiki, as we're continuing to build to it, this could be something great. Though it could always go the route that Jujutsu Kaisen does with Yuji and Sukuna, having him torment Yuji before we got that major reveal we did in the newest chapter, which you can learn about by clicking my JJK review on the left, or you can click here on the right to watch my Boruto chapter review if you haven't already.